Hello, and welcome to It's Already In You podcast. We are your hosts, Liz
and Jenine, nutrition and movement experts, mothers and business owners, obsessed with helping you quiet the noise of diet culture.
Seeing through the false advertising and promises of our food and fitness industries, helping you discover that everything you need to upgrade your health and well-being is already in you.
Today, we have a pretty heavy discussion, but we're going to lighten it up a little bit, right? So give you some food for thought about what's going on in the American food system, how it's affecting our health and our well-being, and across the board, from our mental health, our gut health, our just everything from neurological to chronic illness to disease, and even the common cold it can affect, right?
Yeah.
I think when we speak to food and nutrition and nutrients, so many people don't understand that it not only figuratively, it literally affects us on a cellular level, right? Yep. Our cells need nutrients. Our body's expecting certain nutrients to control the functions of the body. The body's pretty amazing in what it does and how it does it, right?
Yeah.
So we want to simplify that. Eating shouldn't be difficult. It should be straightforward, right? It should be, when we talk about our organs, there's involuntary and voluntary organs. This should be an involuntary type of task that we do when we are eating to improve our organs' functions and our body's functions. And I think we've turned this into, over the past probably 75 to 100 years, a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. So we want to try and look at the food system today and give you a little guide and some tools on how to, push through the hard decisions and make some good ones.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, ultimately, it's our responsibility to care for our body. And the fact of the matter is like you said, progressively over the last 100 years, and I would say even the last 20 years, that much more, we've gotten further and further away from foods that are natural, that our body understands, knows it needs, is necessary, and it's, as we've said in previous episodes, it's become a new normal, and there is a money-making driver behind it. And today we really just want to be honest with you guys and also just kind of like put up those red flags so that you can see them clearly, because at the end of the day, like, as much as like it's upsetting or it's overwhelming or it's like frustrating to like live in America and have this, food system dictate what we have to put into our bodies every day, it really is our responsibility to educate ourselves.
Yes.
And it shouldn't be as hard as it is, but the fact of the matter is it is, and it's necessary for our livelihood.
Right. And it fits into our feelings and our belief that we know that it's already in you, because it shouldn't take, we shouldn't have to look in books for the answers or look into podcasts for the answers or go to influencers or educators or any of those things. It's a fundamental activity that,
so simple,
right? We should be able to, it should just come to us naturally. So we have a lot to cover today. We may not get to it all. We are actually expecting that this is going to be a 2-part series for speaking to the food system. But Liz, define food and what that is to you, and what that means to get this going.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of how I want to feed myself or how I want to provide meals for my children, I think honestly of how do I want to feel? What foods are going to fuel me and give me energy and support my overall health? I also think of, what foods are, going to make me feel sluggish or have weight gain or things that ultimately, impact our health. So all the things really, whether it's exterior or interior, food is the way that I know I'm going to be my best self. So that really dictates the choices that I make. With that being said, as somebody who is pretty aware of the food industry and pretty aware of, the lack of quality and the lack of care that goes into food, I still am constantly like, what the heck? Like, why am I struggling to make decisions, or why do I feel like there is no option? So to your question, like, I do feel like I feel like a lot of people come from a place of, how can I make the better choice?
Right.
I want my kids to be healthy. I want to be healthy. I'm putting a little bit of thought or a lot of thought into it, but still kind of falling into a place that doesn't feel great.
Yes. And no one wants to eat unhealthy, or no one wants to feed their children unhealthy. It's just society has led us down this path, right? And the food system is chronically pushing us to make these decisions.
Well, I mean, basically at the end of the day, our food system is manipulating our choices, and it's making it very hard. I mean, I see the quote or the meme or whatever, regularly, that it is more expensive to eat healthier with less ingredients and less expensive to eat things filled with 1,000 crappy ingredients. And that just doesn't make sense, that an apple can be more expensive than like Cheetos. A fruit roll-up.
It's crazy how we get overwhelmed by everything that's going in the food system. However, I feel like you never stop learning.
Yeah.
Like, don't you feel that way?
Of course.
Like, my kids will be like, "Oh, that was good last week," and now you're like, "No, no, you can't. You can't have that. That's not good this week."
Yeah.
But it's just because I've read research or learned something, or an ingredient has changed in something.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
That happens all the time, right? Like, a big company will purchase a small company,
100%.
and then the ingredients aren't as good as they once were, right?
Yeah.
And it's really, we'll get into this more about feeding your family and all of that. That's episodes that are coming up. But, just trying to navigate through a food system that has changed so much, and coming back to the fact that nutrients are what we need to have optimal function of our cells and our body systems and our organs. So coming back to the fact that we need to eat real food, right? And then you would hope that it's that simple.
Yeah.
So just eat real food and go back to that, shop the perimeter of the store and don't go in the middle. But then there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
And, there's ugly truth behind what's going on, and how our food's being treated, and how much it's traveling, and what they're doing to keep it looking fresh while it's traveling that distance. And so there's a lot going on with that.
Yeah. I mean, a funny story just came to my head. My husband and I lived in Europe for a while. And I'm sure if you've traveled, to Europe or other countries, you totally can relate to this. But when we moved over there, I can remember seeing the food and being like, why is it so dirty? Like, at the grocery store, like, why is it so, like, looks like it literally was just picked from the garden or wherever. And it was because it didn't have that sheen on top of it or that waxy coating or whatever. It was because the potato came from the ground not that far away and came to the little market in the town. And like all the things, like, the breads that we would get would go bad in like 3 days because it didn't have all the additives to have long shelf life in it. And coming from America, like, I was like, at first, like, what the heck? Like, this is, and then and this was like probably like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, as I kind of understood why, I was like, flipped it. And I was like, what the heck to America? Like, why are we in this space that we are okay with this system? And you hear all the time, these ingredients or these additives or whatever are illegal in all of these other countries.
Yes.
Hello? Like, why is it okay? Why do we make it okay?
Why do we accept it?
It's the dollar bill.
It's the dollar bill. It's convenience. We've gotten so used to, like, I mean, if you go back to like our ancestors baking bread and how long it took, right?
Yeah.
And I just made a sourdough, and I can tell you that it's really difficult. It's hard to stay home all day and make sure that the bread is baking and rising and all of those things. But what's happened over time now is that because of the convenience, because we want foods to last longer on shelves, because of that dollar, now America is overfed and undernourished.
And,
right?
and honestly addicted to a lot of these foods.
Addicted to a lot of these foods. There's high toxicity and low nutrients and efficiency in our foods for what they're supposed to be doing. So we are deficient in a lot of our nutrients.
100%.
So when you get toxicity and deficiency, you get disease.
Yeah.
So, you know, looking at that, there's a lot of things that are going on. We have alarming statistics happening in America. The rates of obesity in children have increased more than threefold since 1970 and quadrupled in children between ages 6 and 11. So there's a shocking over 42.5%, and that number keeps rising, of adults are obese. Over 70% of Americans are overweight.
Yeah.
So like, we hate hearing those numbers, right? And we hate hearing these statistics, but there's got to be something going on that in that time frame, what has changed, right? We talked a little bit about, Liz had mentioned that, you know, we're not just worrying about adults getting disease and illnesses now. We're really concerned that it's happening younger and younger and younger.
Yeah.
So the statistics there are 64% of our households have at least one member living with a diet-related chronic illness. And it's diet-related, right? So chronic illnesses, autoimmune, COPD, heart disease, diabetes, like all these things that you don't even, so many, like the lists go on and on and on. We could never touch on every single one of them, but they're all diet related. You know, if you look at 100 years ago, you're looking at 1 in 8,000 people had a diagnosis of cancer.
Yeah.
Now it's 1 in 2 women and 1 in 3 men.
Yeah.
So it's like there's something definitely shifting.
Yeah. So like, and it's so apparent, but with that being said, we are so heavily swayed. So as much as like I hear those statistics and I know them to be true, and like you can just look, you can go to the beach and see many kids who are obese. And this is not coming from a judgment place. It is what it is, but there's a reason, you know, behind it. And if we keep feeling sad about it or bad about it or don't know how to create the change, it's just going to continue. So having like some clarity and education, but also like taking that look in the mirror, whether it's you or, you know, your family or someone that you love, because ultimately like we want the best for ourselves and we want the best for our children and our loved ones. And so to know that those rising statistics are real as a community, as families, as, you know, sports teams, as so many different like, you know, groupings of people, we should really be screaming at the top of our lungs, like, hello, like this needs to be
Somebody
looked at.
needs to
We
listen.
need to be, and I keep going back to like the psychology of the food industry or the choices, because I am victim to it sometimes. And I'm trying to figure out why is that we know that. And in the moment it can be fearful and like, I'm not going to do this. But then when the choice comes in front of us, why do we still choose to make something that we know is ultimately harmful? And I think that that's because of not wanting to be uncomfortable in the moment, not wanting to make your kid uncomfortable, convenience. But ultimately, it's the structure of our lives, I feel like. You know, if we slowed down, if we created more habits that were self-care, then our choices of food would be different. It's very hard to make different food choices if we are buzzing around with little time to think, connect, chew, prepare something. It really is near impossible. Like, you need to take a pause, and it can be done in many different ways. But like the food industry takes advantage of that. They know that that's our lifestyle.
High level.
So we are going to use words and we're going to use food to tell you like, this will make your life easier. This will make this.
Yeah.
And we want that. We want it to be easier. Life is hard. We have busy lives. And so, like
the food industry has so much money.
Yes.
That they have the ability to put people on social media, to put people out there that are, you know, like you said the word fearless, like, you know, you hear that all the time. Like there's people out there that are fear mongers that want you to believe this, but it's not true, right? And I'm definitely not here to say that there's not that there are people that like, you know, there's extremes of everything, right?
Sure.
But I think it's important to say here that there's a lot of people out there that are trying to like wave the flag and say, hey, America, pay attention to this.
Yeah.
70% of our kids have signs and symptoms of heart disease.
Yes.
Like the allergies in America are at an all-time high, right?
Yeah.
Everything from
behavioral learning, like all those things.
Autism, all of those things. The prevalence is just increased in rapid rates and numbers. So, when you hear that we have this, that we're being, given a heads up about people that are out there and that they're telling us this information that's not true, you almost have to like second guess that. Like,
oh my gosh,
is
totally.
Is that not true, or is that really the truth? And now I'm second guessing it, right? The other day, someone sent me that article, and I think I sent it to you, about how the food system is just like tobacco industry, and that they're going, they're trying to make us believe that all this, the thought that we've had all these years that junk food and all the high calorie foods are not going to make us overweight and sick, right? And that there's all this research coming out, just like the tobacco industry did, so that we weren't afraid of smoking, right?
Yeah.
And there was a time frame, and I say this to my clients and to friends and family all the time, that there was a time frame that doctors and like very reputable, intelligent professionals were doing commercials for tobacco, and they were advised you could smoke in your doctor's office, right? So there was a time frame that was actually acceptable, and people were believing that it was okay. We're gonna see the same thing. Like I can almost guarantee you, I would bet a lot of money on 20 years from now, I hope it's sooner, but that we're going to see like that things that our food system has changed and adopted we're going to realize that there's significant impact in those things, right? And,
that's what we're doing right here. We're part of the pushback. Like more people are going to rally together and be like, enough.
Yes.
Like, no.
Yes. And on top of all the things that we're adding to our food, we're also losing the nourishment of the food. And that's big, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at statistics for that, and I think this is one that makes everybody like, wow, like in an industry where we really want to be healthy, right? And we just said like nobody really wants to be unhealthy or do things that are going to cause their body harm. But we're in an industry where we get bombarded with, take this supplement. So, if I take this supplement, then I really don't have to worry about eating the vegetables, right?
Yes.
I could just take the supplement. Less than 5% of Americans are nutrient efficient.
Yeah, I believe that all day long.
So, and you know how much money? I mean, go ahead. Say a number that you think that we're spending on the supplement industry and right? It's trillions.
Trillions, yeah.
And so we have advertisements from professional athletes, from all of our like heroes in the world that are telling us like this product is good and that's healthy and this is. I think I saw something on an ad the other day that was like, if you want to eat healthy, and they showed a picture and it was Subway.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like, what?
I know.
Like, what is healthy about that?
Well, essentially the same thing as the doctors talking about the cigarettes. These top performing athletes and these people exteriorly, movie stars or whatever, that on the exterior might look like optimal health and efficiency and stuff. They're promoting, Gatorades and Prime drinks and Subways and stuff like that. And you're looking at this person and you're like, oh my God, they're an NFL quarterback and
so fit.
And they must be
healthy.
saying this. And I guarantee 90% of those people do not consume what they are selling. Because
they're holding the Gatorade cup there.
They are optimal. They need to have optimal health, and they know, but they're also getting a check for millions of dollars to sit there and say that. So that is just real. And you said, with like fear mongering and people like, going overboard and, waving the flags. What I think that really is just the way that maybe that person communicates.
Yeah.
I think in general, most of these people who are saying like, hello, like this is what's going on, like this is a flag, I want you to know. are saying it with substance. They
Yeah.
know what they're talking about. And if there is somebody that's saying, no, that's not true, this is healthy for you, or this is whatever, it is because, again, of money, and that their job is to sell a product. And so if anything is threatening to that product, they're going to undermine it and call it false and a lie. And there's not regulations that say that they can't.
Right.
You know, you can say whatever you want to say. And so I feel like there's times that I'll talk about this stuff or other things health related, and I've definitely been like, it's been called like a conspiracist, like a conspiracy theory. I'm like, no, this is actually real. Like,
this is real.
And it's not even made up, because if you look around, if you go to a school or you go to a doctor's office or you hear all of these odd things, new things, we have enough data now of how the food industry has been trending that we cannot not say that the increase in all of these things is directly related to what we are consuming or what we are not consuming,
Correct.
the nutrients that are lacking from our soil and all of that stuff. So at the end of the day, like, of course people are going to say that's not true if it's going to pull money from their pockets. You would hope that their like conscience would be like, but like it's happened forever. You know, you hear things about like all the people at big tech, like, you know, Steve Jobs, he didn't let his kids have iPhones and stuff because he knew, but he was still like selling them. Like, that's their job. Like, you know, it's our responsibility to care for ourselves and make decisions. It sucks that people make it harder and lie to us, but ultimately, like,
of course,
they are making their money to fund their life.
And when the majority of people are doing it, that's where that societal, I don't want to feel different, I don't want to be, so then you can be defensive if you have all this other information, right?
Yeah.
And I really believe, like with my whole heart, that they want us to be confused.
Oh my God.
You know, like the more confusion there is, the less you're going to make the right decision,
you're
because
gonna freeze. You're going to be like, oh, what do I do? I'm not going to do anything at all.
And it gives you an excuse to make the wrong decision.
Yeah.
Well, if 90% of the people are doing it this way, then why should I believe that red dye number 40 is going to cause health concern if it's in our food and everybody else is eating it? Why can't I eat it? Right? So with that being said, and I think that we're going to get to the end of this episode, but we can pick up with these things when we come back. But what's changing, right? And let's speak to that in the food system. What we eat, how we eat is changing over these past 7,500 years, even more, right? But when we look at that big scheme of things, 50, 75, and 100 years are not that long of a time for the amount of change that has happened in our food system, right? So our environment is changing, and that is because of what's going on with the soil, with the air from the soil, with, you know, and all the ways that we farm is different. Like you used to go to a farm and there was the animals, they'd fertilize the soil and the agriculture and the pigs and the corn, and there would be all different things on that farm, right? Now we've industrialized that. So now you go to a farm and they're just growing one crop. Like that's not normal. And nature, when we mess with it, is going to give us kickback.
Just like the body.
It's not going to like it, right? So we have that. We have farm to factory. We have marketing, especially to our children. We have local in season to long transport, and we don't even know what in season foods are anymore. And there's what I think is so intriguing when you like break that down. Like think about when citrus goes into season and what it helps with, right? Like, and when you really break that down, you're like, oh, vitamin C and cold season, that makes sense. We should be eating that more, you know, in that time frame. And then there's soil integrity. And that's a really big problem because of all of the chemicals that we're spraying on the soil. And then food packaging. And in America, like I have so many people that have gone to Europe, and like you just said, it's so like, again, this is something that like we had a garden and my husband would bring all this food in and I would look at it and there'd be bugs on it. And I'd be like, I'm not used to this. I took it out of the bag that said pre-washed, right? And now I have to wash it and flick bugs off of it. And it's crazy. But the packaging is also causing problems in our food, whether it's chemicals leaching into our food or affecting our environment because of what packaging we're using, right? There is microplastics now that we're finding in our bloodstream at like in crazy high level
heavy
amounts.
metals, all the things. Yeah.
And then there's the confusion, the misinformation, and the lies. So when we come back in the next episode, I think we should really touch on like specifics. What's going on in the meat industry, in ultra processed food, UPF, and dairy industry, and all of those things, and enlighten our community and our followers on what's happening and what they can do to change those things and really make good choices that are simple, that are not too far out there for them, and that they can do one thing at a time that would make such a big difference.
Absolutely. It starts with education, and also it starts with you, and we know it's already in you.
It's already in you.
If you guys want to let us know your thoughts on this, share more information of kind of your point of view, we would love to hear from you. Follow us at the It's Already In You podcast on IG, or email us at It's Already In You podcast.